over time, over the last 15 years, I've seen a huge move. And I feel like we're on the cusp of this trend now. Let me just give you an illustration of what I'm sort of putting in, but I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm just going to say it as it is. Let's say there are lots I haven't worked with that we are now considering because we like what their Instagram looks like. Okay, that's cool. We love their Instagram, but we don't know anything about them. But then sometimes I get feedback saying, could you ask the videographer to possibly change the song?
What are some takeaways that you get after a wedding when it comes to receiving the final product?
And then I get quite a lot of, oh, it's a pity they missed this moment.
Today I invited you here to discuss some things about wedding videography in general. As you've been in the industry for 15 years, you've seen a lot. And I'm only been a videographer for 10 years, so I'm excited to talk to you about some of the things that some couples are wondering out there, and also to discuss what are some of the things that you're seeing coming into trend and into fashion, and what people are considering to look at more when it comes to videography. So the first thing that I would like to discuss with you is the style of wedding films. How has it changed over the last couple of years, and what are clients looking for more specifically when it comes to wedding videography?
So, Jock, when I started out in the industry, there were like two options who did video, and they almost acted as like directors. It wasn't very subtle. It was more posed stuff. And videographers sometimes, to be honest, got in the way a little, and would try to either micromanage the photographer or the photographer would have to micromanage them. So these days, I think the trend has moved towards storytelling. There's a lot of ask for documentary storytelling, non-invasive videography. So the videographers are essentially there to capture real moments, which I'm all about that, because at weddings, there are so many real behind the scenes sort of moments. And it's important to me that whatever videographer we choose, essentially, I think personality, to be honest, and delivery are more important often than style to me. I see a lot of videographers blending styles, which gives them versatility and adaptability to what the client wants. Then they're not positioning themselves in too much of a niche. That can also be valuable, I guess. But for me, for my clients, I would say a little bit of versatility without losing what makes you you, right? I would never expect a videographer to completely change their style on behalf of one of my clients. Then we'd rather choose someone else, okay? So just to add that, don't lose what makes you special as a videographer, but try to add, I'll use an example here. So if you're just a storytelling videographer and you're just doing documentary style and it's so artistic that you are basically saying to the client, I'm not going to capture what's really that moment that's really important to you. Like, let's say they've rehearsed a dance and it's taken them months and months to rehearse their dance, and you sort of say, no, but that's not, you know what I mean? I think we also need to take into consideration which moments are important to the clients and maybe ask that upfront, not get like a whole script or a whole shot list from them, but just take into consideration, what the client also values.
So would you say that clients are opting more for behind the scene, not behind the scenes, but more documentary style type films where people aren't non-invasive when it comes to the wedding day? Or do you see more wedding videographers coming and doing more directing type of stuff? What do you see the couples leaning more towards?
Definitely not the directed stuff. Both in photography and videography, I'm getting a lot of the same wording. We want to enjoy our day with our friends and family, we don't want to stand and take photos or do video for 3 hours. Okay, that to them feels very often they're camera shy. So the thought of just spending even an hour on your couple shoot, like to them is daunting. And also they don't really value that because they value time with it and that experience with their guests more. They want to taste their food, they want to listen to their band, they want to do stuff like that instead of doing that tedious 3 hour couple shoot, for example. I get very few clients that do ask for the directed stuff. And that might just be me. That might be the type of clients that I'm attracting. That's not to say the directed stuff or the post stuff doesn't also carry value. It's just, I guess, my clients.
What they prefer
Yeah.
on having on their wedding day. And would you say that that is initially with time become the trend, the norm, which people are looking for?
Yes, definitely. I definitely think over time, over the last 15 years, I've seen a huge move. And I feel like we're on the cusp of this trend now, where it's an artist telling a story, documentary style. Yes, I think people are booking videographers based off of their ability to tell a story really well.
And tell me, Nikki, with something that's always a big elephant in the room is budget. What are clients looking for when it comes to budgeting for wedding videographers? Are they tending to spend more on it as it's becoming more of an intricate role in the wedding? Or are you seeing them moving away from spending too much on it?
In the past, when I started out, um, videography was a super nice to have, right? People were saying that's the first thing that they're going to cut if they're on a small budget. I think as I've progressed in my career, I'm obviously doing more high-end weddings, so budget is not such a concern. So I write videography into their budget proposals right from the get-go, even if they haven't requested it. And I think I do that for a reason because I know the value that it's going to add to their wedding day. So I somehow tried to convince them that this would be the best for them as well. And it is. Because at the end of the day, photos capture a still moment, but a video gives you the ability to rewatch moments as it was on the day. And I love that. I can't remember the question.
Yeah, just budgeting for
Yeah, I
videography.
have a lot to say about this. So I think, let me just give you an illustration of what I'm sort of putting in, but I'm not going to gatekeep. I'm just going to say it as it is. On my R1 million client budget proposals, I usually write about 45,000 to 55,000 for a wedding video. Okay. I would probably, if you agree with me, consider that to be on a higher end.
That is in like the top 10%, I would say.
So, and I think what I'm doing there is I'm valuing videography and photography. I'm valuing using a high-end supplier who I know has experience. Experience, you need to pay for it, right? So that's what I'm trying to illustrate there. And I think that's also an 8 to 10 hour package, you know what I mean? So we're not doing 4 hours there, which is only going to capture a little bit of the day. We are capturing the entire day from getting ready to when the guests dance and party, right? That's the entire day. So that's also a longer film. So that's what I'm doing. And I think 90% of my clients are super happy with that.
Okay. And then what is some of the deliverables that those clients get when they book videographers for that price?
So once again, I think an 8 to 10 hour package, probably a second shooter is very valuable because on R1 million and over budgets, you're looking at a lot going on the day. You're often looking at a pre-event, a wedding day, and a post-event. You're looking at a whole weekend. So essentially, you're probably filming two or three bands, you're filming a lot of food, you're filming extensive decor. So there is a lot going on. So I would recommend, a package have a second shooter on it. And then, yeah, I think they're probably then happy with what, a 3 to 5 minute wedding film? I guess that's long enough, hey, to capture just the highlighted moments.
Yeah, do they tend to ask for something a bit longer, like a 10-minute film? Do they want the speech as separate, the reception, the ceremony separate?
I've had it recently where people have said, no, we don't want the speeches in the video. It kind of spoils the emotive feeling. I know. I didn't think so. I thought people really wanted the the speeches and maybe the ceremony in their video, but not everyone values that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think with the wedding industry here, and specifically the Western Cape, I think a lot of guests come over with their friends and family. But the trend that I've seen come to light more and more is that a lot of the time they want more of the scenery than per se their friends and family, because I think they feel like they've paid all this money to be here. So why, for example, have a speech in the wedding film that's taking up a minute of the time to put in a scenery? So that's something that I'm seeing couples opt out of more, is allowing me to put a speech in their wedding film. And also is it's very difficult to gauge what is a good memory for them as a couple when someone talks about it and when it's a bad one. So most of the time, unfortunately, we only get to spend 24 hours with them in total when it comes to having the call and also being with them on the day. It's not enough time to completely understand the dynamics of the family and to get a real feel for what they want. Um, if they want a speech or not. So, but something that I have seen is when you double down and you just use a bit more scenery, they more tend to be happier with their wedding form afterwards and come back with less revisions.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's such an important point. And also, let's be honest, some guy always speaks for 20 minutes. How are you going to put that in your video,
Yeah,
you
and I
know?
think speeches are most of the time quite a pain point at the wedding
Mm,
because they're either too long,
mm.
so people feel like they're just sitting and listening, or sometimes something goes wrong where someone says something very far out left field and everyone is kind of pissed off at this person. So I think
They're saying
using
stuff about your 21st, and you're like, it's my wedding. We
yeah,
don't
so
need
I,
to go
I
there.
think people are very much not too fond of it most of the time. Um, yeah, so that's something that I've seen, and I have to say, as more as I go into couples where they have a lot of money for weddings, they want to impress their friends. They want to have something, a showpiece of how the day went, and they really want you to wow them with the product. And that's why it's important to work with planners, work with florists to make sure that you are getting the creations in the best possible light, making sure that you're documenting it well, because in essence, that's the only thing you're going to have left after the wedding. And that's, I think, what couples pay a lot of money for.
I agree. And the drone footage. You
Drone
know,
footage. Oh,
drone, the
yes.
endless conversation about can we have drone footage? No, we can't fly in the rain. Sorry. But yeah, drone footage. I think that's a huge trend that we've all seen now. Um, Photos and video taken from above, which gives you that aerial view. It makes it look very luxurious, right? Look at this wine farm.
Yeah, look at the
Look at
surroundings.
the surroundings. And I do think, obviously, our international clients, which you and I probably book most frequently, they, like you said, they want a showcase of the best of South Africa. And how do you do that without showing the view, the landscape, the mountain,
Yeah, the
So
number
I
one
guess it
thing,
makes sense.
the
Eh?
number one thing I see at weddings is couples asking, "Listen, can we get a shot here in front of this mountain?" And it might be straight after ceremony, and the light would be terrible, but that's what they want. They want the mountain, they want the vineyards, they want the scenery, they want the wine farm. So I see more and more couples leaning towards it. And if I can say it, one of the biggest companies when it comes to videography in South Africa, that's what they do well. They capture the celebration, the setup, the scenery in such a fantastic way that couples book them for that specific reason. Not because they capture the speech as well or set the couple up correct when it comes to posing them. They do that specifically quite well. And I think that's why wedding planners and couples tend to book them, is because of having that specific natural ability to do that quite well in every wedding that they do. So, yeah,
Obviously, the quality of the video
is also next level.
like, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's also when it comes to understanding lighting setups when it comes to weddings, and also understanding how am I going to make this decor look as good as possible without showing the the faults of, let's say, for example, the wiring that's holding up the installation, for example. See, all of those finer details, you get that with experience, understanding, shooting it over and over, seeing how it works, how it looks. And then when push comes to shove, you have 5 minutes to do wedding setup videos. You have enough time to make sure that you're getting every specific detail that a client and a planner would want to see. And that's how you get booked over and over.
And
So,
essentially, just to add to that, I think every videographer or photographer should remember that a planner has spent a year, and all the creatives have spent a year designing this wedding meticulously, especially on these high-end custom weddings, right? The napkins have been made and embroidered with the client's initials. Um, don't miss that. You know, if you're unsure, have a phone call with the planner. Which are the custom items? You know, what should we be looking for? Because if that gets missed, I promise you that was important to the client as well. The client wants to see the hard work and all the decisions they've made along with the planner. They want to see that on their video, right? They want to see this. They want to see the party. The party for them was epic. They want to see that in their video.
common misconceptions when it comes to wedding videography. Do people feel that it's very intrusive? When they look at the packages and they see 10 hours coverage, do they think they're getting 10 hours like a 10-hour wedding film? What are some things that you see couples necessarily like having a wrong perspective of when it comes to wedding videography?
I think sometimes there are moments they'd wished had been in the video that aren't,
Like what,
because,
for example?
no, like we've just mentioned throughout, I think sometimes a videographer would value something because you don't have that long relationship with them usually, right? So it's maybe worth asking, which moments do you really value? And then yeah, it would be useful if those are in the video. Yeah, yeah. I guess it's about communication. At the end of the day, good communication is what this industry is should be built on. And managing expectations as well. I think just a tip for videographers, I suppose, you could always just send a link in your email saying, I think just watch this video as an example of the package that you're actually looking at booking, because that would illustrate to the couple visually, that's a visual example of what you could be receiving. So I think that would be very helpful to manage expectations.
That's a great idea. I think that's something that I would definitely look into, because imagine sending your packages to a client and giving them a link where you completely explain it in totality what you're offering. And then the client call can rather be more about the couple, understanding where they're coming from, instead of a couple call where you're just explaining everything that you do for the wedding day specifically. And also, it's a nice way to kind of upsell yourself as well when people are looking at the packages, to for them to kind of get an idea of what you offer different from a other videographer, and how you might different style wise from a competitor.
I agree with that definitely because I think clients are extremely uneducated this with regard to, you know, a wedding. This is the first time that they're doing it, essentially. And if you don't have some background knowledge on, you know, weddings, then looking and scrolling through endless packages of photographers and videographers. Trust me, as a wedding planner, me doing the research, I'm actually doing it for 5 clients now, the same research. I'm looking through packages and packages and packages, and I'm just like, I don't even know who to choose at the end of the day. You know, I'm going to recommend this properly to my client. But so style and budget are not the only two things, you know, that you're looking at. So it would be great, like if I didn't know, let's say I know you well, because obviously I've worked with you so many times. So I know exactly, you know, like how to describe you and your style to a client. But let's say there are lots I haven't worked with that we are now considering because we like what their Instagram looks like. Okay, that's cool. We love their Instagram, but we don't know anything about them. I would love to have a little video, like you say now, that the videographers sent us, explaining a little bit more about their style. How do they approach a day? How do they approach their communication? I mean, it's all written down in a package this long, essentially. We don't really read. People don't read. People are visual, especially this new generation coming up. Everything's quick and visual. So why aren't we doing that?
Makes sense. And then, Nikki, last question is, what are some testimonials and feedback that you received from clients when it comes to seeing their wedding film? And what are some things, takeaways that you get after a wedding when it comes to receiving the final product?
Um, it's varied. Some clients are just like, I absolutely love this. I'm so happy. Thank you. No changes. And I guess those are sort of the easier, less particular clients, right? Um, and that also just means we've probably matched the right videographer to the right client. Okay, so that probably reflects on us as well sometimes. Um, but then sometimes I get feedback saying, could you ask the videographer to possibly change the song? A lot of song change requests. And I know a lot of videographers are quite particular about this because they want creative control over that aspect, which I understand, but clients don't understand why. So I get a lot of that. And then I get quite a lot of, oh, it's a pity they missed this moment. So, and then essentially, I need to go back and
And
ask the
ask us,
videographer, did you really miss this on the day? Or do you have some hidden
yeah, some
stuff
other
that you haven't
footage. Yeah,
edited yet, but we could essentially pop into the video? Um, and I don't really like asking that.
yeah, it's very daunting, I
It's
assume.
daunting for me because, yeah, a videographer is essentially, I think, put the best, what they think is the absolute best. And then a client like has that request. So
Yeah, I think a lot of the times videographers tend to look at feedback very wrong. If a client says, listen, we love the video, it's great. Sometimes that might feel to me that, okay, they might just be saying that to just not engage with changes that they would really want to see in the wedding film. Because a lot of the times it was very difficult for me to get feedback like, change the song, please. Where's this shot? Where's that shot? But the thing is, it's a two-way street. We have to work together to get something for the client that they would really like. And most of the time, when I go through all of these changes with a client and they get the final product, the end result for them is much more wow in a totality when it comes to the whole wedding film and the way they look at it now. And I find that most times those couples tend to tell their friends more often, and I get to do their friends' weddings as well because of it.
okay, so the effort that you've put into listening and making minor changes.
It's much more worth it for the couple, and they value that a lot more. Because the reality is, if you only book clients that's just going to be easygoing, they're not going to want to have any changes, it might feel like you not necessarily hitting the mark always. Well, that's what I felt after a while when I've got like 10 wedding films out and all of them said, yeah, great film, but none of them had some changes, some things that they will want to see. And a lot of the time with those changes, I get an understanding of what clients are looking for more and more, and seeing my style evolve into something that's more current, where I'm not stagnating in something that's a bit older.
So do you think maybe, just a suggestion to videographers out there and to planners, how about like after a wedding, we do a full wrap up? Like sometimes we can be lazy on our wrap ups, all of us, because we've moved on to the next thing. We've got 50 other weddings to plan. So maybe if we wanted to gather more feedback, which is essential to our growth, I mean, whether it's really horribly critical or whether it's nice feedback, feedback is feedback. You want that essentially. That's golden. So it would be super valuable to maybe even have a wrap up call after you've presented the video. Have a wrap up quick phone call or a WhatsApp discussion and just say, hey guys, I really want to know, what did you think of your video? Are there any minor changes that could make it go from good to excellent for you?
Yeah, and I think also something that's valuable about that is also understanding when couples aren't a great fit, seeing it much earlier in the process. When it comes to, you'll see a pattern of clients coming in, working with you, and they want something completely different from what you offer. And being at the beginning stages where they're considering booking you and having a discussion with them, understanding, listen, but this is not what I offer as a wedding videographer. Being happy to say, this is not for me, guys. Unfortunately, this is not the way I do things, but I'm happy to send you to some of my friends that are more educated and skilled and enjoy doing that type of wedding films. That's something that I see more and more, because the problem is if you try to do everything, in essence, you don't get to do the nice things. You just get to do the everyday wedding where it's probably just the same. And clients tend to be much different when it comes to that, because they want something that's not necessarily going to be something that you can do, because it's something different that they want. And
No, definitely agree with you. I mean, that is for the entire wedding industry at that point. As a wedding planner after 15 years, I'm not sensitive anymore to this point. Essentially, I want you to want to work with me. And if you don't enjoy my honest, bold, transparent sort of the way that I work and me in the initial meeting, if we aren't a match, I will very quickly say, cool guys, I actually think you're a better match for this planner. And it's nothing to get offended about. It's done much more harm to us, like as planners, to take on clients just because, we need the money or we just want to book more weddings. The money's not worth it because you're spending a year of your life and yeah, with that person and they're not happy, you're not happy. This is like a horrible, it's a bad relationship. You just can't wait to break up with them.
yeah, so I think that's a great point to end off of. Nikki, thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for being open and honest about stuff and giving us a better understanding out of a planner's perspective when it comes to wedding videography.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks, Jock. Too many more.